Breaking news, local Jamaican high schooler was given a choice. Suspension or go bald.
Bumbleclot! 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 Pussyclot! Rasclot!
Meanwhile, in Canada, snow has risen to 10 inches, but kids will still be expected to come.
Going to a new country really broadens your outlook on life, especially during your teenage years, when you're more influenced by your environment. As you all know, I went from Jamaica to Canada, and the difference between them is like going from the metropolis to Gotham City. And it's not like being on the streets of Toronto turned me into a vigilante like Batman, but with all the jokers in the city, I was on the verge. In my last video, I highlighted the difference between going from Jamaican to Canadian high school, but I never told you how it impacted me and changed my whole perspective on life. So today we're doing exactly that. The biggest change for me wasn't the building, the teachers, or the classroom. It was the people. Yo, they never told you that going to a new school basically meant starting at level 1 without any tutorials. The worst was when you came to a different country, it was set to max difficulty. In Jamaica, I couldn't go 2 minutes without me and my friends skinning our teeth like a pack of hyenas. But in Canadian school, I could sit down beside someone for the entire semester and they would stay silent like Ferb. The biggest shock was when the teacher would leave the classroom and everyone stayed so quiet you could hear a pin drop on the floor because they were listening to their main teacher, Mr. iPhone. Meanwhile, in Jamaica, the kids would cause pure pandemonium by dancing and doing all kinds of shenanigans. With how private most of these people operated, making friends was difficult. Yo, the first couple of weeks were rough. Yo, I was sitting by myself all alone like Forrest Gump. Nonetheless, I was determined. So I talked to these guys who sat at the back of my history class. The reason was simple. They were the only black people in the class. Don't get me wrong, I'm not a pro-black activist like Dr. Umar. It's just that in Jamaica, most of my friends were black. And I wasn't really planning on having an all-white party like Michael Rubin. I walked up to them and I said, yo bro, you like football? In Jamaica, that was the easiest way to make friends. Yo, if two men watch football or play football, the friendship is set in stone. But he responded with, nah nigga, we don't play soccer, we only play basketball. Luckily, I knew enough about American media to hold a conversation. There was 3 of them. All of them were wearing skinny jeans, Jordans, and different color Bape hoodies. Yo, if I squinted my eyes, I felt like I was looking at Alvin, Simon, and Theodore. The one wearing the purple Bape hoodie was the Alvin of the group, so whatever order he gave, they followed blindly. Yo, I was on the verge of being in their friend group, but just like the Mafia, there was a requirement to join. I had to become a designer god. Louis Vuitton, a Moncler jacket, a Nike ski mask, and a pair of Jordans. And just to emphasize how similar they were to the Mafia, the only way to climb up the ladder was to have the most Jordan collections or have the most girls. But I found out early why these guys sat at the back of the classroom. Yo, they didn't care about assignments or listening to the teacher. They only came to school to flex and get girls. Yo, these niggas prefer getting J's than getting A's. That was the moment I realized making friends in this country wasn't about who you were. It was about the image you had. Back in Jamaica, I never really cared about name brands. I only knew about school clothes and dressing clothes. Now, going to school took forever because I was looking for the best outfit to wear like I'm about to be on the cover of Vogue. I went from khaki pants, a shirt, a tie, and Clarks to skinny jeans, Bape hoodies, and Jordans. Dating in Canada during high school was interesting because there were so many options. It's just like what Bruno Mars said, beautiful girl all over the world. But I wasn't prepared for the girls who were in store. The more beautiful they are, the more they tend to shuffle men like cards. And I wasn't in the mood to play wicked games like The Weeknd. The only issue was that picking up girls required the same thing as making friends, image. And with girls, you had to step it up even more. You had to have the status. You needed a low taper, dreads, plus jewelry like earrings and a chain. And since I was coming fresh from Jamaica, I was rocking the One Punch Man specialty. Side note, for my Jamaicans, Caribbeans, and African watching, we all know that asking your parents to pierce your ears was an act of treason. But I wanted to look clean, so I secretly got both my ears pierced. When I was doing it, I felt guilty. But after seeing them, it was meant to be, although I had to hide it from my parents. Yo, this was mission impossible. I had to wear a hoodie over my head like Oliver Queen while I was in the house. My father, he never cared, but my mother had an entire panic attack. Anyways, back to the subject at hand. Coming to Canada, I was adamant about getting a girlfriend, so I approached this girl in my history class, the same class with Alvin and the Chipmunks. I can't lie, the first day I stepped into that classroom, I noticed her. Yo, I could tell she had some Caribbean DNA, so I talked to her. I used my charm, and she said she liked my Jamaican accent. We exchanged Instagram, and I went back to my seat. Then Alvin and the Chipmunks pulled up on me and said, "Yo fam, we saw you talking to that girl. That's you." A lie? Yo, they told me she drank and smoked a lot of weed. When we started hanging out, yo, she was smoking more than a steam engine and wanted me to skip class to smoke with her. Yo, I never did any of that, so I was an outcast with the people I was acquainted with. It really felt like I was on an episode of Euphoria. It's not like in Jamaica, we didn't have people who indulge, but it was a select group. Although in Canadian school, this was common. If you didn't vape, drink or smoke weed, you were labeled boring and lame. Another thing that changed was my accent. When I first came, I spoke exactly how I did in Jamaica, and I never thought twice about it. Over time though, people constantly asked me to repeat myself. They were confused, and sometimes they even laughed. So when I spoke to a teacher or a classmate, I had to switch to proper English. Yo, I would switch my accent like a light switch. I would do it so well to the point where people would say, "You don't sound Jamaican." Like they expect me to say "bomboclat" every sentence. But I've played these games before. If I did that, then they would ask me to teach them Jamaican and treat me like a Jamaican dictionary. What does bomboclat mean? Are you a real bad man? How many baby mother you have? The only time I could speak Patois was around my parents or Caribbean friends. Yo, I wasn't perfect though, especially during presentation. Yo, once I projected my voice, it would slip out. It wasn't that I was ashamed of where I came from. Yo, I just wanted to be understood. Canadian school felt like the Wild West. You could get away with almost anything with barely any consequences. In Jamaica, teachers generally wanted you disciplined. If you never handed in an assignment, they'd look for you or even call their parents. But over here, if you choose not to do an assignment, they would just give you a 0. The students would take advantage of this and skip more classes than Ferris Bueller. And when it comes to grade, I was serious about mine. Like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't bawling my eyes out like SpongeBob if I got an 80. The kids who attended my class did the bare minimum or sometimes nothing at all. In Jamaica, discipline wasn't a suggestion, it was guaranteed. Over here though, I had to develop self-discipline. Yo, I always knew where I came from. I never wanted to be like everyone else. I was Jamaican through and through, and I wouldn't change that for anything. But being in a new country, I felt like I was stuck between two worlds like Ken Kaneki. One part of me was entwined with Jamaican culture, while the other side had to adapt to fit in with Toronto. A couple of years flew by, and now I'm unrecognizable from the 15-year-old who landed in Canada. When I call my friends back in Jamaica, they would say, "Yo dog, your accent gone." Yo, I don't know if they're joking, but this would make me start hyperventilating like SpongeBob. At first, that comment used to mess with my head, because if my accent changed, what else changed? I started to question little things, the music I listened to, the way I dressed. Yo, back in Jamaica, everything made sense. In Canada, I felt like I had to translate myself just to be understood. But after a while, I realized something important. Adapting didn't mean I was losing my identity. It meant I was expanding it. Alright guys, thank you for watching this video. It's been me. I'm out.